Triambakam yajamahe Sugantim pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva bandhanam Mrityormukshyamamritat
Hi, this is Amelía Eon Karis.
Hey everyone, it's Satya, and you're listening to Love, Sex and the Hidden Agenda. Welcome back. It's Satya here. Hi, Amelía.
Hey, Satya.
How are you today?
I'm doing it. It's a wild ride, but I'm here. Yes, I'm ready.
Showing up, sister. That's right. I actually have had something on my mind that I've been fascinated by for a while, and I've been curious around this idea of, I know I have a couple of people that I'm very, very close to that have experienced this. And I wanted to talk about it because I'm fascinated with it and I don't understand it. So I'll tell you what it is. So somebody very close to me, let's say, develops this psychic connection with somebody that she's interested in, somebody she's falling in love with, or somebody she fell in love with. And so, for example, there's a couple of people, but the specific person I'm thinking of fell in love with this guy in junior high and just thought or felt deep in her soul that they had a soul connection and that they were going to be together in this lifetime. And she just kind of fixated on this person and just always knew that, just knew it in her heart. And she would get information about the person, or she would, like, let's say, send the person, a picture of a tree. I'm thinking of this tree and I'm sending this to you. And then the person would say back, "You're kidding me. I'm standing in front of that very tree right now." Or something like that. Things like that, multiple small things would just continue to happen over the years. Now, this person ended up not really, they did date and they were together, but this guy ended up later marrying somebody else. And even after he was married, she still had this thing with him, and she would still send him, things or messages either through the phone or through, or just be thinking of him, and then maybe call him, or he might call her. And this kind of thing kept happening. And what fascinates me is that, it was being returned to her in a certain kind of way. The guy was giving her some energy back, clearly, to keep this going, right? But also wasn't really ever clear, maybe within himself, or at least to her, or maybe not being fully honest, that he really never had any intention of marrying her or being with her forever, like she did. And yet he clearly was enjoying this kind of energy that he was getting from her, because I guess in a way it can be very intoxicating and it's fascinating. And because people don't fully understand, or we're not taught enough about, I don't even know what the word to call it is, but let's just say psychic energy, or that I think they misinterpret it, or it can be interpreted as, maybe I am meant to be with this person, right? So I'm thinking, did the guy, and because I care about this girl a lot, like I'm thinking, did the guy just get confused by this and thrown off by this, and then thought, oh, maybe I'm supposed to be with her, and yet the other pieces of him knew he really wasn't, and had no intention on that. and which is why, he led his life the way he did. But yet the amount of energy that my friend, this person I know, put into him, for many years. I mean, I want to say half of her life. Yeah. And then after that was finally let go later on, and she ended up getting married and having another relationship and then leaving or divorcing. But then later she ended up, meeting somebody else who she had this connection with again, somebody who she really wanted. And then she began to do this with him too. And she would tell me, like, I just feel this way. And, look, I sent this to him and then there he was, experiencing this very same thing. Or, then these things started to happen again with this person. And she's thinking again now with this guy, we're just meant to be. I just know I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait and I'm going to wait. And I'm going to wait. Meanwhile, he's texting her every day, having an emotional relationship with her, which is probably hard not to. I mean, that's very, I guess, intoxicating, but, and so this is going on. And then one day he calls her and says, well, yeah, I'm engaged. And she's just in shock. Like, what? And
all detail to leave out. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he's like, what's the problem? Like, did I mislead you or something? And this whole time she's thinking, we have a real chance here. And maybe she's dating other people, but she's not really taking any of them seriously. But so I'm thinking, what is that?
Yeah, you're talking about a couple different things. So I would say like relationships with a high level of synchronistic events, because those are all synchronicities, right? Like where she's at this tree and she sends him a text and he's like, oh my goodness, I'm standing in front of that same tree right now, or whatever, right? Those moments, high level of synchronicity. And that gets very confusing when it's, well, in general, but especially when it's around our love life or a romantic interest. So we might romanticize synchronistic events and think that, they're signs that are meant that we're supposed to be together. So when we have synchronicity in our life, to assume that it means it's a sign saying yes is where we falter. So synchronicity, there's signs pointing us in different directions, but what is it actually pointing to? And the meaning that we give it is what we're giving it, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Right. So sometimes we can create a full-on drama for ourselves by just following sign after sign after sign, and it gets very ungrounded. And the next thing we know, we're in some really psychotic relationship because it's so magical and intoxicating.
Yeah. And I think I've done that before, but just in a completely different way. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I have too. I mean, a lot of pretty much every relationship I've ever been in has a high degree of synchronicity. And that's how I've found my partners. I'm not someone who's dated or been looking for that. But what I've noticed for those kind of relationships where there's high levels of magic, psychic abilities and synchronicities lining up is that these are souls we have contracts with and stuff to work out, karmic ties. And so two things can happen. Those karmic ties can be very toxic. Generally, most of the time it's something we're working out. So that you're going to have a high level of magic and drama and intensity and probably some kind of heartbreak because you're working through something that happened in the past. So you're going to have a lot of sync ups in terms of directions. And I think these relationships are really powerful for our soul evolution. And for those of us that are older souls that are here to really clear karma, then we're going to have a lot of those.
So is this a type of sex magic?
It can be. So sex magic, I would say, is when someone's purposefully or stepping into a level of sexual union that starts transcending the physical and goes into the spiritual deeper and deeper. So I think that maybe if your friend would have been sleeping with them and it continued through the act of sex, then we might be talking about sex magic. But I think what you're referring to is more her over romanticizing multiple synchronistic events and assuming that it means they're meant to be lovers or partners when they haven't been, and then being surprised that he hasn't been honest or hasn't been available for her in that way. So some people that are misusing their own sex magic or misusing their power, which is a form of sex magic, could be manipulating the situation. I don't know your friends. I don't know the guy. But if, let's say that he was aware that he was doing that and maybe even somewhat lying to keep her in the magical thought, like, oh, I'm standing in front of that tree right now. And then maybe he goes and looks for the tree and takes a photo and he's just trying to hook her. That would be a sex magic. If it was just a synchronistic event and he was honest, yes, I am standing in front of that particular tree right now. That's just a synchronistic event. So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's the intention behind it.
Kind of, yes. And I think that when this starts to happen, I think that a person could probably do a little bit of both. I think they could, have the synchronicities and then kind of embellish them or, desire that so much because it feels magical and they want to feel something, that then they do that. And then they may very well do little things to make it bigger than it is. Or like,
or they're looking for signs everywhere. So they're making them up, like.
Right. And I think people even can do that without even really being all that clear, aware that they are actually doing that, because the play is so fun and so magical that we just kind of tell ourselves, oh, this is what it is. And it's amazing.
Yes.
And then we ride that ride.
Yeah. And that's where we can veer into sex magic in the sense of, the art of seduction. People could use magical thinking or synchronistic events as part of their art of seduction, and manipulating through it. I had a recent experience where I was sure that this man had researched me online and kind of understood what I was about, knew I wrote a moon blog, knew that I had this podcast. And then when I talked to him, just started bringing up these topics as if they're his own. And I could tell, I'm like, oh, so you went to my Facebook page. And it was cute because I was like, oh, he's trying to connect. He's trying to
right.
He wasn't misusing it, but I think that men could do that, or women also, anyone could do that, especially in a day of when everything's online and we're living such transparent lives. And predators and people that are, sociopaths or psychopaths could easily play someone who's into magical thinking or following signs. They're just going to manipulate to the nth degree to make you think that it's all destined.
Right. Well, and interestingly enough, in both of these completely separate situations, these were both females that were basically sending out or in some way fixating on the guy and hooking in some kind of way, and we are going to be together. I keep getting these psychic things from you, and I'm sending things, and we're in this thing, right? And so, but in both situations, which fascinates me about the synchronicity of the synchronicities, is that both of these are females, and then the males they are involved with are unavailable somehow. Like they're either just not going to be with them, or one of the guys is married, with kids, and it's not going to go anywhere, even though he is available, and maybe they are having sex and they are together all the time and they're in a relationship. But clearly the guy, is giving mixed signals about, is he really going to leave his wife or isn't he? Or maybe he wants her to think that he is, even though he really has no intention of ever doing that. And that people can act that way and not even think they're really doing anything wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you're pointing to some really key stuff. So I think that there is intentional and unconscious sex magic being used, where, going back to our sexual imprints that we spoke about in the last episode, and how we're wired, we have programs and things running unconsciously within us based on our past experiences and the things that we've collected from the unconscious, the collective unconscious, that are running and sort of creating this misuse, this push-pull dynamic, which creates, lying and obsession and game playing. And the sex magic part, depending on like the origin of the soul. So, we all come from a different, we're not all the same in terms of where our souls originate from. Like some of us are star seeds from specific planetary systems, and others are from Earth, right? So there's like, if we start bringing that in, and that's kind of how my perspective, what I'm viewing is that a soul that has a darker agenda, or maybe is, carrying some, working with the dark side, or working with the deeper occult magic from a soul level, like let's just say past lives, for those who can't relate to maybe the starseed concept. But say like you had a past life of being a dark wizard, we'll just say, and you've come back, and now you're in this modern day context. One's living in, New York and is in finance, and on the surface it seems very normal, right? But actually the soul has its own agenda. So that soul might have come back to complete something it couldn't complete in the last cycle. And so that's where you're going to get a high level of synchronistic charge and the misuse of energy, because unconsciously you're trying to complete something. Like, I'm just going to use examples because I don't know these people you're talking about, but say that the guy, maybe she was a witch in a past life and she had put a spell on him, and maybe he lost himself to her. And so in this lifetime, he's decided that he's going to seduce her and like take his power back from her. So he's going to take her on some ride, something like that. Right. I mean, it could be, I have my own examples I could get into, but for the sake of this conversation, and so then unconsciously she's also misusing her power because she's romanticizing. It sounds like, she's fixating and going into this obsession, right? And I think we all have experiences of doing that at some point in our life, because, our whole culture is set up for romance and for being swayed. We're being advertised seduction and passion constantly. And
yeah, it's a program. I mean, even just in every Hollywood film. Yeah,
exactly. And so we all can get caught up in that. And I think, for those of us who are here as spiritual warriors, as bringers of light, and trying to find balance and create balance in our own lives, we have to be aware of that program running, and really bring awareness to it to kind of stop the unhealthy pendulum swing of psychosis and neuroses that happen when you get caught up with seduction and obsessions. because that is a form of sex magic where the darkness, the parasite I speak about, is basically feeding off of that energy.
Bam. Yeah.
And that's where, and you as a friend listening to your friend share these stories, you're probably seeing like something's unhealthy. Like this doesn't feel right. And you're concerned, as you should be, about your girlfriend who's like in this obsessive cycle with this man who you can tell has no intention of really being a healthy partner or something she should be involved with. But because of her soul contract with him, it's going to be very hard for her to break that unless she does some serious soul work and maybe gets the help of a therapist or someone who can help her see through the illusion. Because when you're hooked in, it's really hard to see. I mean, how many of us have tried to tell our girlfriends or guy friends, right? Like that person ain't good for you. It's a drug.
Right.
You need to stop it. And then they can't, right? It has to play out. And I believe that play out is really the soul's finding their balance again and kind of, hopefully we're eliminating the karma, but a lot of the times it's just creating more karmic scarring.
Right. And then even, you know, in these particular situations, even, so the women were sending this thing out and then the guy, let's say that he is a person who is, you know, not fully, completely being honest with himself or with her in a full, real, tangible way. He may even be getting so intoxicated by this woman, you know, seeing into him this way with the amount of energy she's giving him. Yeah. That's a huge amount of energy to be feeding. She's literally feeding him. And he has more energy that way to use however he sees fit. But he also may get even confused and think, oh, wait, am I supposed to be with this person? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Even if he is a sociopath type or a narcissistic type or whatnot, antisocial personality disorder, you know, she's not going to know that because they're not like they see him in the movies. They're usually the most attractive, charming, intelligent, successful people that we know. And so, but this is happening and he's going to enjoy it. It's going to feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I think that feels good for everyone if we're all really honest with ourselves, right? It's like we love having admirers or someone who's giving us attention. And when it's distorted, or when we have a hole from a wound that we didn't get enough attention as children or whatever, then it's sort of like any kind of attention is good, right? Or like we crave it, even if it's bad.
Right.
And that those wounds are really hard, especially, you know, when you come from trauma and abuse or have had something severe happen in your life, then it can get miswired and really you could be magnetizing and pulling in unconsciously these like stalkers. You know, I had stalkers for years of my life. I still deal with them. And I can see that, you know, as a child having been neglected or whatever, then there's like a unconscious soul wound that magnetizes it, because on a conscious level, of course, I don't want that kind of energy at all. Right. But these, it's so subtle. And I don't want anyone listening to like feel, oh, then something must be wrong with me because that's happening, or I have those kind of experiences, because look, we're all in this together. Like I've only discovered this because of having a lot of trauma and doing the soul searching and tracking and monitoring, like, okay, rewiring to health. Like what is health? What is balance? And many of us have never experienced that because we grew up in a very toxic environment. So, you know, unfortunately, I think it's really normal what you're expressing. And this is the drama and why people tend to act out like people either become extremely promiscuous and don't trust anybody, and they just want sex and they're feeding off energy and attention. So, it's just kind of next, or other people are, just can't.
Right. I mean, it may not even
frozen. Right.
It may not even be, it often may not even have anything to do with a past life or a soul connection as much as it is, let's say like in these circumstances that I was talking about specifically, like maybe these women had, they weren't good enough maybe for their dad or something, and then they had something to prove, or they had a voice and they had things to say, and somewhere along the line they weren't listened to. And so maybe this person comes along and is maybe listening to them, and then they decide, okay, I'm going to hook into this person and wait, I feel this thing with this person, and this person I think this person is amazing. I think I'm going to end up with this person. Wait, no, I just have this feeling I'm going to end up with this person. But what's really happening is that thing about where they weren't ever good enough is really what's driving that whole thing, because in the end, these guys are not going to be with them, and they are playing around with the energy of, oh, maybe I might be with you.
And these are belief systems and sort of deep rooted issues that we all carry. Like you mentioned, I'm not good enough. That's a big one that a lot of women carry. Or I'm not enough, or men aren't available. Like if their father maybe just worked a lot, right? And it could just be very much something like, I don't know, maybe they weren't. Didn't get good grades in school, and that created a weird complex, right? I mean, it can come from anywhere. What I want to say for those listening who are feeling like they're stuck in these patterns is to just take time to find the balance within yourself first. I mean, that's really the way through this, to take time, maybe to be celibate, maybe to find a therapist that you can work with, that you trust, to kind of work through what are those hidden agendas that are living inside you that are causing or attracting this kind of people to you, especially if there's a pattern of it. That's the stuff we need to clear.
Yeah. Sounds good. I think we have to wrap up for this session, actually.
We do. So for anyone who wants to share your story with us or has specific questions for me or Satya or Joe, our producer, please reach out to us on our website, lovesexagenda.com. There's a box at the bottom of the page where you can leave your comments and questions, and we'll be sure to address it in a future episode. And you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all of the podcasting channels. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with us. If you'd like to contact us and stay in touch with us, you can find us at lovesexagenda.com. That's lovesexagenda.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram, Love, Sex, and the Hidden Agenda.